What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of Progress with Pagano. This is the podcast where we go over everything from your mindset, your growth, your business, real estate, and much more. Today, I have an amazing guest. This is the Lending John, so on social media, Lending John, aka Dhan Thomas. He is a super impressive guest, and I'm so excited to have him on here today because you guys are going to learn so much. If you've ever been interested in real estate, investing, all the above, and you don't know how to get started or where to get started, Don's going to break everything down for you, and I'm really excited to have him on here today.
Thank you for having me on the Pagano show.
So Don, tell us a little bit about you. So what do you do, and how did you get started with this?
That's a loaded question. My undergrad's in biology. My goal was to become a dentist. That didn't pan out. My first job was not in Philadelphia. It was in upstate New York. So May 2013, I graduated college, waited around a few months. The first place to even hire or do a phone interview was in upstate New York. So I, packed up my bags and moved out 300 miles north. It was, I would say it's basically middle of nowhere when you come from Philadelphia with, tall buildings and, all these beautiful things around you compared to where I went. But then as soon as I got up there, started working, the grace period ended for college. So, student loans kicked in, rents, living on your own. And when I started realizing my budget, my income wasn't meeting my expense. So I was like, you know what? For me, the best place to start was cutting down rent. So I figured out buying a property and getting roommates. I took the grant incentives of buying a home in a low to moderate income area. I basically got $7,000 for my first home and never looked back. I've been house hacking before it was a word, house hacking. Before, in 2013, there wasn't social media, there wasn't Facebook or Instagram, there wasn't, there was Cardones of the world, but they weren't on social media telling you I was done.
That's interesting because a lot of people, that's not how they start. A lot of people, buying a home is a thing they do after they've already been super established and years after they started their career. And you started super young.
Oh, I was 20, I think the week before my 24th birthday.
Wow, so you were 23 years old, first property.
First property, yep.
Wow.
And it wasn't anything fancy either, don't get me wrong. It was like less than 1,200 square foot, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. It wasn't anything fancy, but...
So, and also, Don, we have to tell the audience, so you guys all know I'm a loan officer, but Don himself is also a loan officer. So tell us how you got started in mortgages and how that piqued your interest.
So even though I don't have a finance background, I always was a numbers guy. I always loved crunching numbers. I loved being on Excel. And so as I kept growing my rental portfolio, that one unit, turned out to be 22, 25 units, 8 years later. Throughout that whole 8 years of being in real estate, I always loved crunching numbers. And then people always ask me to review their closing disclosures. I had always friends who would ask, how did you get into real estate? How did you get into buying properties? So I was guiding people through the process before I became a licensed loan officer. During COVID, a really good friend of mine, we're at his house, we're hanging out. Peter was like, hey, you should really think about becoming a loan officer. I think that's something you would like doing. I took it as a joke, but the next day he followed up and kept pushing me. I don't regret it. I wish I started sooner. So I looked online and realized, you take a 20-hour course, you pass your national exam, how difficult that can be sometimes.
Yeah, it can be.
And then rest was history.
Wow. Okay. So, and you were kind of juggling this at the same time with a full-time position.
Oh, correct. I still, have a full-time position. Still in pharmaceutical manufacturing. I still make vaccines. That's, I would say, my primary job. But the real estate, I manage all my properties. I do all my repairs. The properties I do own, I would say I'm 60% owner of these 22 units. I have partners in some of them. Some are sole owners. Some I'm a silent investors in.
How many streams of income do you have right now?
3. 4.
4. So you have your full-time pharmaceutical position. You have your mortgage. You have your rental income, and then what's your fourth?
The property management.
Property management. So you get a percentage of
properties, management.
Wow. So that's four streams of revenue, guys. And the best part about today, we're gonna break it down and how you did that and give you guys a plan and a roadmap.
Yeah.
But I have to ask before we go any further, Lending John, how did you come up with this name? Because for those of you who are not in Philadelphia, what in the world is a JAWN? Obviously, I know, but I want to hear from the lending John what this means.
Well, shout out to Tony Matthew on getting that name. It started as a joke, but he wanted me to be Lendrick Kumar, but that was apparently taken. So then the next best one, he came up, what's lending John? John, it's a place, person, or thing. It's a pronoun, I guess. You could be used for anything. If you're not from Philadelphia, it's really hard to explain it, but it's literally a term you can use for anything. Yeah.
There you go. So stay tuned for more John literature. We're probably going to follow back up on that a little later. So I think going into this whole thing, you went in with the mindset of, I'm going to make more money, right?
I'm going to save money. Making more money for me at that time on that very minimal pay I was making with the expenses I had, my mindset was cutting my expense down. My operating expense was, $3,000 a month. All right, where can I budget? Where can I cut down? And how can I cut down? And that really just snowballed into this, 4 streams of revenue, of income, you can say, multiple jobs or multiple hats that I wear.
So you graduated from college, right?
Mm-hmm.
First step was getting a job.
Correct.
So you got your job. What was your first job?
Regeneron. It's a pharmaceutical company, manufacturing. I was a biotech production specialist.
How old were you when you got that?
22.
22. So we're talking, how old are you right now?
32.
32. So this was 10 years ago, first division, out of college.
Out of college, yeah. With the degree I went to school for. I was trying to get into dental school. That didn't work out. But then I got into pharmaceutical manufacturing.
Okay. So we got first job, right? So from age 22 until you bought how long was it when you got your first salary job?
I was 3 months.
3 months into your job, you're like, I need to buy a house. Renting does not make sense for me.
Yeah, because I was getting letters from my student loans. The grace period is about to be up. This is your projected, loan payment. I was like, oh crap,
Did you have any guidance into it? Like, hey, you should buy a place, or did anyone kind of push you to that, or was that from your own research?
I wouldn't even say it was my own research. It was just a mindset, like I have to buy. Coming from an immigrant household, and you never rack up credit card debt, and that's what you've always been told. Never rack up credit card debt. Buy before you can rent. It just you build equity. That mindset was always instilled from my parents and family, which I do thank them every day for, because if it wasn't for that mindset of, hey, downsize your operating expense, own versus renting, that mindset wasn't there, I probably wouldn't push myself to get to where I am today.
So you had a good upbringing when it came to making good financial decisions.
I had a really great upbringing financially, especially financially, in terms of like financial literacy, like reading a credit card statement, reading a target fund statement, like a Vanguard 2060. My dad's younger brother, he would always explain things when he had free time. My older brother, he would explain to the benefits of buying property, and we always think of these mortgages and just interest rates and property taxes, but hey, you always find a tenant who's want to live in that neighborhood. So these things were broken down by different people at different times in my life. It just all just came together when I just got out of college at the age of 23, 24.
So where did you buy your first? So you're from Philadelphia.
From Philadelphia.
And you went to school?
In outside of Philly, Widener in Chester, PA.
Okay. And then you ended up in upstate New York.
Yep.
Was that for the job?
Yes.
So you ended up upstate New York, and you bought your first place up there in upstate New York.
Correct. Yep.
Was that a single family, duplex?
Single family, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, nothing fancy, 1,200 square foot.
Did you have roommates, or did you?
I was renting with roommates, and then when I bought the house, they came along too.
So the roommates came along.
Correct.
How did you meet them?
One was a high school friend. The other one was someone from work.
Someone from work.
Yeah.
So you knew. It's not like you had to source these cents. You already pretty much knew them.
Oh yeah, and then it was.
And you already lived with them.
I already lived with them, and the other buddy who came to live with me was paying almost a double rent. So I was like, hey, if you want to save some money on rent, just come on over.
So it was a win-win.
Yeah, it was a win for everybody.
Now, did you pay, out of what they paid for rent? Did you have any expense out of your pocket?
Just utilities, very basic. So I'll be completely honest. I went spending $800 in rent to now, building equity, but I only had like $200-300 out of pocket expense per month for just utilities, water.
But all the mortgage and principal
everything
interest was covered.
Covered, yep.
Covered. That's That's awesome.
Yeah. And I also took a 30-year mortgage that converted into a 15-year mortgage. I just want to get out of it.
You refied or?
Yeah. I didn't refi per se. It was just the fact that I had the option of picking 30 or 15. I could have done 30 and cash flowed a lot more. But at that time, I was very green in real estate, I was like, you know what? Let's just get as 15 years. I just want to be out of it. My goal was different. My strategy was a little bit different, but I can tell you in the next episode how that all matured into.
Yeah. We're gonna talk more about that. Yeah. So in that property, how long did it take before you owned that free and clear?
I still have 3 more years left in that.
3 more years. Okay, yeah, so you're almost done.
Yeah, I have 30,000 left on that building.
You're 32 years old and you're about to have a paid off house.
Yeah. And yeah.
There you go. And we're gonna talk more about your strategy too when it comes to like managing debt and expenses and everything like that as well. So stay tuned for that. All right, so bought the place, 23. What was your next move? How long were you in that house for?
I was in that house for 5 years before. I was there until I moved to Philadelphia again.
Basically. So you lived in upstate New York for 5 years. So
yeah, 6 years, 5 years in that house because I was renting my first year when I moved up.
So you moved back like 27?
At the age, yeah, 27.
27 years old. So you moved back to Philadelphia.
I moved right back to my parents.
And your wife, Christina?
Yes.
How did you meet your wife? Were you with her at the time?
Yes, we were together.
Okay. Yeah. So she was up in upstate New York with you guys?
No, she was in Philadelphia.
Yeah. So you guys did the long distance game for a little bit.
Yeah.
And how old were you got married?
I was 30 when I got married.
30. Okay, so a couple years ago.
Yep. Awesome. During COVID, so it was a small, intimate wedding.
Okay, you know what? We love that.
Save some money there.
Yeah, that's what we love. We love saving the money, right?
Marriage tip 101 from the Pagano show. To save money on your wedding, cut down your guest list.
There you go. Guys, you heard that right there. Cut that guest list. Yeah. All right, so come back to Philly. So what did you do? So you found tenants for that place immediately?
Yeah. Okay,
so you just, how did you find tenants for your first?
So that one was funny. I found that tenant was actually the daughter of my other tenant. Oh. So I bought my single family in 2015. I bought a duplex in 2016, right down the street. And then 2019, I bought a triplex, all within 1 mile radius of each other.
Okay, so let's break that down. So, all right, so you rent out that, you come back to Philly.
Yeah.
What was step one? How did you find this property? So you bought
so my strategy with that is different as well, because I just tell any realtor I meet, hey, if you find me a cash flowing property, I'll buy it. Simple as that. If the numbers make sense, I don't care about what the interest rates are, what the property taxes are. If the numbers make sense as a whole, there's a multiple moving parts here. You have your mortgage, which is your principal, insurance, tax, and insurance or escrow, and then you have your income. So I look at market rent. What would be my projected expenses, and if there's a cash flow. So interest rate doesn't matter, yes, but does it really break the deal for me? No, because as long as everything as a whole makes sense.
Okay. So, and that's the funny thing, because so many people, especially in our line of work, right? Because you're also an originator, which we'll talk about in a minute. So many people are still like the rate. What do you say to someone who all they talk about is the interest rate?
Look, dive deeper. Look at the bigger picture here. Especially if it's an investment property, you can always refi. You can always change your rate. You can, but if you've been following any trends here, the last 5 years, the prices for commodity, prices for assets has always just been on the rise. And yes, maybe there might be a crash one day, but if there is a crash happening one day, please let me know. Please let him know as well. Yeah. We're all investors here. We're trying to buy. But realistically, don't worry about the interest rate as much. It's about getting assets and building equity. The only way to build equity is having tenants in there paying for your mortgage. If your building is cash flowing, let's say $500 a month at 9% interest rate, that's really great. That means there's definitely room for growth there. I have bought buildings above 6%, 7%. What I just look at is like, you know what? When the market crashes or when there's a correction in interest rate, I'll just refi that property. And then increase my cash flow. But I'm not going to shy away from a property just because of one thing. That's not my strategy. Mm-hmm. For others, it could be different. But for me, that's not.
Yeah. So how many properties are you at right now?
9 buildings, 22 units.
9 buildings, 22 units.
Yeah, that's 60% owner. I have partners on it. It's not all. I have a team, right. So I'm not by myself.
That's a lot, for anyone, right? Especially like someone who this isn't the only thing you do. No, this isn't your full-time job, right? Managing that many units, that's a lot. So All right, let's go back to your story. So you came back to Philadelphia after growing up here. What was the move? You knew you had to buy a place, right away.
Yeah.
So you bought a triplex?
After that one, I bought a triplex. Yeah.
Okay, so you bought a triplex. Where was this at in Philadelphia?
In Chinatown, 12th and Ridge.
12th and Rich. And you lived in one unit?
Oh yeah.
So you and your fiance at the time, girlfriend?
Girlfriend. We didn't live together till we got married.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you guys didn't live together, but you dated throughout that time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're over there in Chinatown. What was that experience like? Like finding tenants in a major city versus like a smaller town in upstate New York. Was it any different?
Yeah, For me, it wasn't that hard. A lot of these buildings that I do buy, I adopt tenants. They come with tenants. So the Chinatown came with tenants. They're still there. That 4 years later, same tenants. No,
Same tenants, 4 years later.
Just casually increase rent.
Mm-hmm.
They're happy to stay there. In upstate New York, they're all long-term tenants. Like I said, my second building's tenant came from the daughter. I actually ended up renting to her other daughter. So 3 of my 7 tenants I had are just a mother, daughter, sisters, basically.
Nice. Okay. So, and how long were you in that triplex for?
The Chinatown one, I was there for about, I would say, half a year.
Half a year.
Yep.
Okay. So after half a year, you're like, time to move on.
Yep. I bought my actual real home. My wife picked it out. She just showed me one day, like, hey, I want this one.
That was your forever. Like you knew like that was
yeah,
the
that's my 9th building is my first home, I would say.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. First real home that I would like to make it a home, and my wife did a great job making it a home.
Okay, so that's awesome. So you bought that was your third home you ever bought, was your forever home.
Yeah.
All right. So after that, everything since has been investment opportunities.
My 9th home was my first home.
So your ninth home was your first home.
Yeah, first home that I would call it as a home, because I did live in all these other buildings, but they were in my head, back of my mind, just investments.
Got it. So after the Chinatown triplex,
Mm-hmm.
what was the next move?
The one in the Northeast, the
One
single
of the
family.
moves. Okay, and that's where you live now.
Correct.
And so you have your single family up in New York.
Mm-hmm.
You have the triplex in Chinatown. How did you go about finding the next set of properties?
Now I'm coming into my 8th year into real estate. My strategy is a lot different. I went from having no realtors to like maybe 25 in my phone book that I can easily call. I have my go-to guys. They know what I'm looking for. My go-to group of realtors, they know what kind of investments what kind of numbers I like to see. And now they just bring me leads. They just bring me, hey, this is on the market. Hey, I got this off market. I'm lucky, very lucky. I built a book of a network of team of realtors to just let me know a deal before I hit a MLS sometimes.
Got it. So, all right. So you build your network, right? So what I've learned so far is, property, fulfill the living requirement, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
1 year rule.
Yep. So then you essentially build a network of realtors and people to find you different opportunities that they might have off market, or different opportunities that haven't even hit the public, or they know that's going to be coming up, or they know someone like their cousin or their friend who is selling their triplex or their opportunity that you might like.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the rental income coming in, you have your primary job coming in. What was next?
So as I was growing this, rental portfolio, I had never hired a property manager. That's another aspect of real estate, is having someone manage your property. You need someone to collect rent, do invoices, bill pay, stay on top of your tenants, and also maintenance. And to be fair, like some of these properties weren't cash flowing from day one, so I couldn't afford a property manager. So it pushed me into staying on as the full-time property manager. That entailed, again, landscaping, snow removal, repairs, all kinds of repairs, or just finding contractors to do repairs that I can't do, like roofing and things like that. So that's my fourth stream of income would be property management, managing my own units.
And then when did you become an originator?
June 20. I got licensed in 2020, but I didn't find employment until 2021.
2021. Okay, so you got that license, and that was just a way for you to bring in another stream of income.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Ooh, I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely sticking with real estate. I would say I've been through the ups and downs, the highs and lows, profits and losses. Learned a lot. I feel like if I can keep sticking with it, there's gonna be more success to be made here.
So what would you tell someone who wants to make the first leap to buy their first place? What is one word of advice you would give them?
One word of advice for someone getting to real estate: don't give up. I mean, it sounds very cliche, but don't give up. And yeah, because I remember my second property, man, it had all kinds of issues in terms of like structure issues, roof issues, squatter in there. But just seeing it through and then knowing there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
So that's awesome. That is great advice. I love that. Light at the end of the tunnel. It's like my motto.
Because when you buy the property could have all kinds of issues. You still have an asset right there. And then you can always sell that property when it's time to let go. Sure. But again, the key is finding the deals. The key is finding, you're not buying above market price. You don't want to go 30, 50 asking for a rental property. That's maybe something you want to do for your primary single home, but your rental property, you want to find a deal. You want to find a deal where, hey, I got this property at such a great price where even if one or two tenants not paying rent, my mortgage is not too crazy.
Right.
Where I can cover this, I can eat this loss temporarily. And all these losses are temporary. That's one thing I have learned in the last 8 years of real estate, 8 years of managing properties, 2 years of becoming a loan originator. A lot of these losses we can eat and we can move forward.
But that's also setting up your personal finances in a way where you can afford to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is one piece of advice that I certainly would give to maybe a first-time investor or people who are dabbling in the idea of real estate is do not go over your limitations, your personal limitations, because a lot of people overestimate or a lot of people underestimate what the actual expenses of everything will cost because you're like, oh, well, you write down a piece of paper, you have your mortgage payment, that's $2,000, rent you can get $2,400 a month. After all the expenses and whatnot, $2,400 a month. Let's just say you gross that, and that's your net, 24. But people don't think about, well, the septic tank went, or something went wrong, or there's a leak, and you have to send out a contractor to fix it. And at the end of the day, you could be at your net loss, or you could have a tenant who doesn't pay. Yep. So you need to factor in, okay, bottom line, it's how much I can make, and this is how much I can bleed from the property before I'm like, okay, I'm throwing in the towel and selling this place. Because I feel like a lot of people get into this position where they're buying a place that's a little out of their capacity. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, are not as good at finances numbers with you. And I think that's why it's so important to really do research, speak to professionals, grow your network, become friends with people who are doing this, actively doing this. Because taking on a task and doing this alone is hard and there's a lot of risk threshold. That's why I'm so big on buying a home, living in it, and then if you want to buy the next one, then the next one. Mm-hmm. But limit yourself to taking it slow, especially if this is not your full-time thing.
Oh yeah,
and this can be a full-time job.
I thought about it. I've been pushed by many people to make this my full-time job. I'm not quite there yet. Maybe in the next year or two, we'll see. But having your reserves, that's very important. Like when I was cash flowing on my first property after having my roommates or tenants in place, it was a discipline that, again, from the upbringings I had and, having very financial literate people around me telling me like, yo, you should save that money. I knew if a water heater goes, that's like $1,500. The roof caves in, that's $3,000. So having a rainy day fund, these emergency funds in place in your savings account, you're not touching this no matter what. Always having a healthy cash reserve is very important. And I was able to get to that cash reserve by obviously having that primary job, having that savings mentality, like I want to save. And then any of the rental income, having multiple bank accounts one for your rental, one for your fund account, one for your immediate expenses, and having those reserves, because that's what makes and breaks some of these real estate moguls and people.
Yeah, it's not a get rich quick thing.
Well, there's nothing quick about real estate.
and that's the mistake that a lot of people go into real estate thinking.
Yeah.
Especially people are like, oh, well, I can buy this place, buy this multi-unit, rent these out. Okay, it sounds great. Mm-hmm. But think about all the other things that could happen. There is risk. And that's what everyone fails to mention when they're talking so highly of like, just go buy real estate.
I would say there are the 1% people out there that wholesales, that 1% that does flips, but they have a lot of money backing them up. They're not doing hard money. They might be, but most of them are not doing hard money financing. They're just spending family money or investors' money that they have direct access to, and they'll buy a property full cash. They already have a crew, a developer backing them up. They have a GC backing them up. So they have resources where they're constantly doing this. But those people took time to get where they're getting. And then they're going on social media saying, hey, this is a quick get-rich scheme. But they have done that slow work. They did that waiting around period before they got to where they got.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Don, like throughout 22 units, right? 9 buildings, 22 units, your full-time job, loan originating, property management. How do you keep your sanity?
Who said I haven't lost my sanity? No, I mean, again, I'm very lucky with the friends I have, the social circle I have for sure, the family life I have as well. Some days it is really stressful. There's been days where I haven't eaten in 12 to 13 hours. I'm probably covered in like sewage water, dirt, cement, paint, all kinds of like a mixture of things. But then I can always go home. I can always go to my parents. I can always, go to a buddy's house, just hang out, chill. Obviously after a shower, and then decompress. Decompression is very important because the only way to wake up and do this day after day after day is a healthy decompression. It could be just a walk in the park. It could be, my wife always meditates, so she always tells me to meditate. I haven't quite found the time for that one yet, but anything that keeps you happy is, in my opinion, what's going to keep your sanity alive. I'm just, again, lucky with the people I have around me.
Awesome. That's amazing advice.
Yeah, yeah.
So just to wrap it up here, a little bit about lending, because we're both in this line of work.
Yeah.
So when I have a client and when you have a client, what is the number one way you can, because we're very client focused, right? But like when it comes to helping our clients, right, listening to their needs, listening to their goals, what are also some things that you bring to the table when it comes to working with a realtor or even a listing agent? Like what are some of your special offerings that someone asks you, well, Don, like I like you, but I already work with this person and that person. What is kind of like, well, I'm Dhan Thomas and I'm lending John and this is me, this is what I offer. Like what's your kind of like elevator pitch when it comes to that?
I don't know if it's a pitch, but most of my clients, they do know the line of work I'm in. Mm-hmm. They know I do property management. I look at buildings, I buy a building, I sell buildings. So when they have questions about the building itself, if they're weary about the market, I just give them my honest opinion. And I think my value proposition there is the fact that I'm an investor. I am a person in this market. Mm-hmm. It's like going to a car sales lot and the car salesman takes the bus. If he's not driving the car that he's selling, or if he's working Infinity, he's taking a different car to work. I'm not going to sell something that I wouldn't buy. I wouldn't originate a loan on a building that I won't buy. That's my policy. And I think my clients appreciate that. Those who do appreciate that, they stick around. Not every client's meant for me, and I understand that.
So, and would you say you being an investor, you being in real estate, knowing how that process works, does that help you connect with other realtors?
Oh, yeah. The realtors and the clients itself, because I know when we first started in 2013, 2014, before social media, before the TikToks, before the influencers, there was no outlet. There was no I couldn't get a hold of my lenders. It wasn't until I became an originator that lenders have and this is for everyone out there. Lenders are supposed to be calling you back. If you call your lender, like I know Pagano does it because I actually go to him for some advice sometimes, but your lenders should be calling you back. If you're working with someone who's not calling you back, not answering your question in a timely manner, like one business day or within a day or two, I would reconsider who you're working with, because when I started in 2013, 2014, there was no information about this, and my lenders were not getting back. I was buying properties left and right, but these guys they would extend closing. I didn't know why. I also didn't ask. I didn't know I had a voice. I didn't know, you can step up to these bankers and ask them, hey, what's taking forever? Why are we pushing settlement for the second time? But until I became an originator and I took my ethics training class, and I was like, holy shit. It's like, lenders are supposed to call their clients back? There was a refi I did in 2019, right? Oh, sorry, 2020, mid-COVID. A refi shouldn't take 65 days. It took 65 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it took almost 65 days. Never heard from the lender. But this is before I became an originator. And that actually, I think, one of the reasons it sparked my interest. Like, if I can dick around a client for that many days, like, why can't I just become a lender?
Yeah.
But no, that's not our policy. That's not what we do. But yeah, that's the value proposition I would say.
Wow. So if you decide to buy, right, and you're looking to buy an investment property, Dhan is a good resource.
Yep. And then if you need loans, you can come to both of us. Pretty sure one of us can help you out.
Yeah.
Or both of us. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and this podcast and everything is really geared to entrepreneurs and people who are in the real estate space. A lot of realtors and a lot of local, especially Philadelphia people, will listen in and tune into this and understand that we're here. We're always a resource. If you're ever curious about investing, real estate, mortgages, even just personal growth and mindset, like I'm big into that. That's a big thing. Is like, well, like you said, you have to decompress. You have to do things that are going to alleviate the stress, because when it comes to business and it comes to especially these high income and high producing activities, there's a level of stress that comes with it. Mm-hmm. It's not like you clock in at 9, you go home at 5, and you're done. This is something, well, if something's blowing up, you are the centerfold. This is your business.
Yeah.
This is this loan on the loan estimate says Dhan Thomas with your NMLS number. This is your loan.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when it comes to your business and your reputation, it's most important to have responsible response times, but also when you're outside of work, set aside that time and don't look at your phone. Don't do things that are going to be counterproductive to decompressing and holding you back, because the more stressed out and the more tight you are about things, the less productive and less good you're being doing for not only yourself but for your clients. If you're not at your A game, mm-hmm. you're not doing anyone a favor.
You said it best, Pagano. You really did. If you have any questions, DM him. Any mindset, investing, or just first-time home buyers process, DM Alex Pagano. Have any questions, and maybe you can get another one going.
Yeah, we'll talk more. Obviously, I would love to maybe even do something with Peter.
Yeah.
So Peter, I think you brought him up. Mm-hmm. He kind of got Dhan into this whole mortgage thing, and Peter's a young, successful realtor who's in Philadelphia who's crushing it. So maybe do something with him.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. All right. Oh, wow, bro. You're right. You just kept going.
Oh shit.